The third installment for the Now You See Me franchise. Now You See Me 3, titled Now You See Me, Now You Don't, is the latest and third installment of the franchise by Lionsgate. It has finally hit theaters 9 years after the last movie, but it's definitely been a long time coming. We're gonna talk about it. This is a sequel that I was highly anticipating because of how much I love those first two films. The first one especially was my absolute favorite. I feel like it had a really great twist that was pulled off really well, and it made it hard for the second film to kind of live up to. And it is true that with a lot of talk of the second one having some over-the-tight CGI magic effects and maybe pushing the limit just a bit too far, I still had a good time and enjoyed that second movie. I was really curious to see what they would do with this third installment and how the story of the Horsemen would progress further. Really just anticipating a movie that is just overall fun and dealt with some dope-ass magic shit. And the truth is, I'm very mixed on how I feel about this one. I'm gonna tell you first about the things that I really like, or the things that I feel were kind of a miss first, because that was kind of the order in which I felt things while watching this movie. It's gonna be very hard not to talk spoilers about this movie, but I will do my best and maybe do a spoiler review video next. So let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. So to give you a little bit of the synopsis here, and Now You See Me 3, we take place 10 years after the events of the second film, where we have three new magicians who were inspired originally by the Horsemen and now are trying to make a name for themselves. Their incredible work eventually leads them to meeting and teaming up with the original Horsemen and seeking out to expose and destroy a powerful and rich company suit who has made her living off of illegal sales and theft. Sounds pretty on brand for the franchise, right? Now, going into this movie, I was very excited once again to see the Horsemen do their thing and give us an enjoyable movie. Right off the bat, we see that the main focus of this story is really more or less the passing of the torch of this mantle. I'm not gonna lie to you. Early on, that was kind of a nitpick of mine because I always feel like movies feel like they need to do these passing the torch type of films after so much time has passed. And that trope, that trend pisses me off because in truth, the magic of the first two movies was really the core group itself. And even though I knew that from the trailers that we would have additional cast members, I still would have preferred that the Horsemen were just doing their thing and not necessarily having to teach a new generation. Along with that, I feel like the character of Dylan Strike this time around was a bit underwhelming with the story, where he is and some decisions that he has decided to make. It actually felt pointless and it left me confused and wondering what the logic was and what was going on, the decisions that were being made. There's also a bit of choppy CGI in the beginning of the film as well. There's a particular parkour scene that I was really able to notice that CGI, and it did take me out of the moment for a minute and took away some of my enjoyment for the scene itself. You get that throughout a couple times in the movie. Thankfully, I don't know how heavy the CGI was actually used here, but that was a moment where I definitely noticed that shit. Do, however, get to meet with the Horsemen quite early on in the film, and in all honesty, I was not too much of a fan of the story that was given to them. Through the trailers, it's not unknown that the Horsemen by this point have broken up, and the way that they decide to explain that and what actually happened really made me feel like these characters, they kind of got shat on. They're almost left to live this painful and boring and very guilty life that, in all honesty, to me, it feels really undeserving, with the exception maybe one character who doesn't necessarily feel guilty and shameful, just moving on with their life. All of this happens and unfolds pretty quickly in the movie, which is leaving you to experience the movie itself moving forward. And through a lot of that, I found it to be enjoyable, but it was definitely lackluster. Action, I feel, isn't as extravagant or fun as those first two movies. The pacing in the beginning itself feels very spotty, being slow in some areas and moving very fast in others. And for whatever reason, the suspense does not feel very prominent because despite anything that goes on, I'm never really worried about any of the characters and if they're gonna make it or be locked away. I always had this confident sense of safety when it came to the group. Those first two acts of the movie, I feel, really hold the film back from being a great addition. And this was almost confirmed to me when I looked to my left, and in the theater, I noticed a couple who actually got up and walked out about halfway into the film. Now, I don't say all of this to say that the movie is a complete disaster, because it isn't. It's not. I actually think that this film has a very redeeming quality about it that saves it from being a disaster. And don't worry, I'm gonna talk about that here in a second. But it was very enjoyable to see the Horsemen interact with each other once again. Each one of them jumps right back into their role seamlessly. The chemistry is there. And as a group, they are still definitely charismatic and they're fun to watch. The magic that is showcased and the misdirection that is the constant theme throughout the entire movie and really the franchise is prominent and it's done effectively. Even the newcomers are charismatic and they have a good sense of chemistry between them. Now, I definitely think that there is going to be a discussion out there about the movie possibly going girl bossy, especially when it comes to Ariana Greenblatt's character. But honestly, for me, that wasn't so much of a problem. Ariana Greenblatt does a really good job at her portrayal of this sleight of hand magician, being a lot like Jack Wilder. She does get pretty badass in some moments here in the film. I mean, she is young Ahsoka, so I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. The character of Bosco does a pretty good job at being this more aggressive version of Danny and less of a passive aggressive character like who Jesse Eisenberg has been portraying. Charlie is also great in his role as this behind the scenes guy, shy guy, often given a lot of history knowledge that is needed to execute whatever plan or puzzle is in the works. But he really starts to shine towards the end of the film and gave a really good performance. The real redeeming quality for this movie, though, to me at least, is the ending twist. It's not a secret that this franchise likes to do big twists at the end of their films, and this is one that I'm not gonna say is unpredictable. I definitely believe that there are people who are going to be able to spot the twist early on, but for myself, in the third act of this movie, everything was done so well, enough to keep me so invested in what was happening in the now, that truthfully, I was not thinking about what the end twist would be. So when that finally came, I was actually caught off guard and I was surprised. And I think that it actually holds up to the twist of the first movie. I really enjoyed the way that everything came together and unraveled. And so I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that the movie is horrible, because I don't think that it is. I will say that it just might be the weakest of the three, mainly because those first two acts and most of the movie is really just all right. You're not really worried about anything that's gonna happen as much as you are just watching a cool magic trick and being entertained. But that third act, it does kick up very well and it becomes even more fun with a great ending twist that I think saves the film from being the worst that it could have been. But even because of all of that, I still would probably recommend that you wait to see this movie on streaming or rent it when it's available, because as I said before, I feel like this one is the weakest one in the franchise, but it does have the second best twist of the franchise too. And make with that what you will. But that is really all I can say in regards to Now You See Me 3, as far as not trying to give any spoilers. There are quite a few spoilers that we definitely could talk about in a spoiler review video, so if that's something that you'd be interested in, let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you thought about Now You See Me 3 and where you ranked this with the other two movies. And if you did stay into the end of this video, I really do appreciate that. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the future content that comes out. We have a new remake Rumble that's gonna drop, so make sure you keep an eye out for that one. But until then, man, y'all make sure you stay geeked. I'm out, and be smooth.